Howdy, Legendary Void here, and today I have a fascinating Wave 3 deck tech for y'all. I have dubbed it the Electric Chair because it composes of double Shockwave. We are playing both the rare one from Wave 1 and the super rare one from Wave 3. I've been looking forward to play this combination for a very long time because of how synergistic they are to each other. Now, Decepticon Shockwave, the Wave 1, has 6 attack, 11 health, 3 defense, and when he flips to his alt mode, he lets both players draw 2 cards. And while that may not seem that great, it does come in handy in very specific situations, which kind of happen a lot with this sort of deck, but we mainly use him for his bot side skill, which says when a card is scrapped from your opponent's hand, your opponent chooses one of their characters and does 1 damage to it. This is going to be one of your main ways of dealing damage to your opponent, when we have a lot of battle cards in this deck dedicated just to that cause. But he has 4 attack, 11 health, and 3 defense, and he is a specialist and a leader. There's that. We also play Major Shockwave, who is a leader spaceship specialist in alt mode with 6 attack, 17 health, and 3 defense. The 17 health is massive, the defense is great, and even the attack is pretty good. But he has the ability that you can look at the top card of your deck at any time, which is absolutely fascinating. It definitely helps influence your decisions. And then when you flip this mode, you can draw a card and then choose a card from your opponent's hand and scrap it, which does proc his ability. But his bot side mode is actually pretty fascinating because of his universal ability to look at the top card of your deck at any time. If that card is a secret action or a Decepticon card, which can either be defined by the purple around the card or the Decepticon symbol here in the middle. I don't know if you can see that. There it is. If you see either of those as the top card of your deck, you can actually play it as if it were in your hand. But it does count as your action / upgrade for the turn, which does kind of stink, but it kind of balances him, because otherwise it would be way too broken. But these two equal exactly 25 stars, being 14 and 11. He is also, I think, one of the most expensive cards that's not a combiner other than Omega Supreme or Metroplex. But yeah, he's a huge guy, and they both have really good stats that work very well together. So let's go ahead and get into the battle cards. We have a lot of actions to go over. So the first one being 1 copy of Reclaim. This lets you put an upgrade from your scrap pile on top of your deck. This is mainly used to cycle the level Gamma Disruptor Launcher, which is Shockwave specific gear, which we will get into in the future. It is a Decepticon card. You can play it with Major Shockwave. We also run 2 copy of Brainstorm because of how many actions we run in this deck. You're going to be wanting to play a whole bunch from your hand, so 2 Brainstorms seemed pretty good to me. We also play 1 copy of Espionage. This is a good way to disrupt your opponent's hand and also trigger the Decepticon Shockwave's ability to deal some extra damage. So there's that. And then we also have 2 copies of Disruption, which lets you look at your opponent's hand and scrap an upgrade from it. It is an orange pip, that's why we're only running 2, but it is another way to deal damage with Decepticon Shockwave. We also play 2 copies of Security Checkpoint. They're mainly for the double blues, but you definitely can play them to help try and trigger Decepticon Shockwave's ability and deal some damage. I've discarded up to like 3 cards from my opponent's hand with Security Checkpoint, and it's really nice dealing a whole bunch of damage to your opponent for running extra upgrades. So we also play 2 copies of System Reboot. I would run 3 of these, but I had a hard time finding space for it, which kind of sucked. But 2 copies of System Reboot seem fine, because there's a lot of white in this deck, and you don't want to have too much of that, otherwise it kind of disrupts the pit flow. But it lets both players scrap their hand and draw 4 cards, which again is made directly to trigger his effect. So 2 copies of that seem fine. And we also play 2 copies of Leap into Battle to help Major Shockwave deal even more damage with his base 7 attack in bot mode. He'll have base 10 plus whatever he gets from the Shockwave specific gear. Even in a blue deck like this, it gets crazy sometimes. The amount of damage that Shockwave can just deal. But it's really good. Leap into Battle is definitely a 2 or 3 of. We also play 3 copies of Disruptive Entrance. This says look at your opponent's hand and scrap an action from it. Actions are one of the most common things you'll find in your opponent's hand, so Disruptive Entrance is a good way to help get rid of those from there, and again, deal extra damage using Decepticon Shockwave's ability. We're running 3 of those because it is a blue pip as opposed to Disruption's orange. So we also play 2 copies of Vaporize, which says scrap an enemy upgrade. This helps you get past things like force fields or even bumpers, which I believe is the one that blocks non-attack damage, I think. It also gets rid of Ultra Magnus armors, which block damage from Decepticon Shockwave. So those removal of upgrades is very good if you can't get rid of them from the hand initially. We also play 2 copies of Unconventional Flying Object. This is to help trigger Major Shockwave's alt mode ability, to draw cards and also scrap cards from your opponent's hand to trigger Decepticon Shockwave's ability. You can kind of tell this is a very combo-y deck. You can pull off some crazy stuff. I was running 3 of these before I did this, but I decided to take one out because you want to be playing your other actions as opposed to this most of the time. So because Shockwave's ability lets your opponent choose a card from their hand, so you don't get to pick as opposed to something like Disruptive Entrance or Disruption. So but it is nice for whenever you need to draw cards, and then it is an additionally good 1 damage to deal with Decepticon Shockwave. And we also run Smelt. This is our final action. Your opponent chooses one of their upgrades and scraps it. It is a green icon, so it helps you pull it back in your hand. But it is nice if your opponent has only 1 upgrade on the field, which does happen a lot because you're scrapping them from their hand all the time. So Smelt just immediately gets rid of that since they get to choose. But yeah, that's all of the actions, but we're going to get into the secret actions here in just a moment. We run 3 different secret actions, the first one being 2 copies of Dampening Field. When one of your characters defends, your opponent can't flip more than 4 battle cards during the battle. This helps negate Lionizer's effects, so they can't flip Bold 5 or however many Lionizer gives them. It's ridiculous, but it does help negate that, so they don't deal quite as much damage to you. And since they both have pretty high defense, 3, 3, 2, and 3 here, they can block some low damage pulls if they have ridiculously high bold and you flip enough blues. So Dampening Field is very nice for that. We also play... You can also play the secret actions off of Major Shockwave's bot mode ability, which is really good. So if you ever find yourself in a pickle, you can extend your hand by 1 and play a secret action, which is pretty good. And then we also have 2 copies of Infiltrate, which is a fantastic secret action, which lets you essentially block your opponent from playing an orange action, aka press the advantages, zaps, that kind of thing. Most of the time, you're going to want to be playing it once you know your opponent has a press the advantage in hand, because that really, really hurts Decepticons, and Infiltrate blocks that very, very easily. And we also run 2 copies of Battlefield Reporter. When one of your character defends, draw 2 cards and put a card from your hand on top of your deck. I always forget to play this card. I really like its effect. Its effect is good. It's like a reverse incoming transmission. You draw 2, put 1 on top of your deck, but it's for defense instead of offense. But it's really nice. Except I always forget to play it because I'm really bad at remembering secret actions exist. But it's a good card. If you have a lot of those double blue pips in your hand, you can get rid of them using Battlefield Report and just defend a little bit more. Or if you need to put a white pip on top to ensure you defend something else, it's just very good for that. And that's all of our secret actions. Alright, for our weapons, we run 3 copies of Level Gamma Disruptor Launcher, which is Shockwave's specific weapon, which says you can only put it on Shockwave, and 2 of them can fit in his weapon slot at once, which means if you get 2 of them on him, he does get +4 attack. And then when you put this on Shockwave, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and scraps it, triggering Decepticon Shockwave's ability, dealing damage somewhere. It's just a really good card for getting more damage onto your Major Shockwave and then dealing damage with Decepticon Shockwave. It's very, very combo oriented, and it's a lot of fun getting to play that. Plus, it is a Decepticon card, so you get to play it off Major Shockwave's bot mode skill, which is very good for just boosting attack out of nowhere. So we also play 3 copies of Handheld Blaster, mainly for the double blues. The bold one can help sometimes because we do run a couple of oranges being Disruption, and I think a couple more. But it's alright. I mean, I would never play it onto someone over something like the level Gamma Disruptor Launcher, but mainly there for the double blues. And the last weapon we're playing is one copy of Energon Axe. This is for when you can't draw or can't get the level Gamma Disruptor Launcher on top of your deck for Major Shockwave to play. It gives +3 attack as opposed to the +2. And it does give Pierce 2, so you'll probably want to play that on Decepticon Shockwave because he has the lower attack stat. But you definitely can play it on whoever just to give him a pretty big attack boost. That's all of the weapons. Let's get into the armors. We only run 2 different armors, being 2 reinforced plating and 2 sparring gear. I was initially running 3 reinforced plating, but then again, I couldn't find room for the third one, so I just took it out since you'll probably be playing the sparring gear to your hand anyway. But they all give you tough too, which definitely helps keep your shockwaves alive, as they definitely will need it because they don't, well, Decepticon Shockwave doesn't have the most health in the world, and Major Shockwave has only 2 defense in bot mode, so he can take a lot of damage. They both can take a lot of damage, and Sparring Gear helps negate that by pulling it to your hand. It is an orange pip, which kind of sucks, but it also helps them deal a little bit more damage, and it does come in handy just a little bit. But yeah, that's all of the armors, and we only run 1 utility, that being 3 copies of Field Communicator. I'm sure you guys saw that one coming. When you put it on a specialist, you can look at the top card of your deck, and then you can play that card. Now, the beauty of that card is it works perfectly with Major Shockwave, because if the top card of your deck is something you do not want to play, you don't play Field Communicator, because he can look at the top card of your deck at any time. If Field Communicator would have you play a card that is undesirable, you don't play it. Like, for example, if the top card of your deck is a Handheld Blaster, you just don't play it. You wait until you have a favored card on top of your deck, which will definitely give you an advantage. So they work perfectly together since both of them are specialists. So 3 copies of Field Communicator is very, very good. Alright, so I promised that I would be doing sideboards pretty soon, so here is my 10 card sideboard that I would be trying out for this deck. Alright, so for the sideboard character, I kind of decided that Optimus Prime, General Optimus Prime, was probably going to be the best option, because there's not a lot of Decepticons that really help Shockwave in a 2-wide list better than Decepticon Shockwave, so if you ever feel he's just not a very good option, General Optimus Prime definitely helps because he does hand over Bold 1 and Tough 1 to Shockwave, so he can deal more damage and also defend a little bit better. And General Optimus Prime is just a really good attacker in and of himself. He has essentially the same stats as Shockwave, being 4 here and then 6 here, but he is very good in and of himself. He has a little bit more HP and less defense, but he is a good card. He is ranged and melee, so he can't benefit from the Field Communicators as much. You can definitely swap out 1 or 2 for the list of sideboards that I have over here. So the first sideboard card I had initially is 2 copies of Fractos. This is for if you decide to, in fact, keep 2 copies of Shockwave instead of the Optimus. You can play 2 copies of Fractos to deal with just a little bit more damage, because Burn seems to be very good with both Shockwaves, and Fractos definitely benefits since they're both Decepticons. We also have 1 more copy of Smelt to help get rid of your opponent's upgrades if they are a very upgrade-heavy deck and you can't get rid of the cards from their hand fast enough. If they are, in fact, able to play the cards faster than you can get rid of them through things like new designs or swindled, Smelt helps you get rid of them through that. And then we also have 1 copy of Scavenge the Battlefield, which is a secret action, which lets you move over any number of upgrades from one character after their KO to the other. This is for mainly the Shockwave gears, and also if you want to go just a little bit more offensive by adding another orange pip. This is for moving the Shockwave gear over here, scrapping opponent's cards by moving them over. We're only doing 1 sideboard of that. We're also playing 1 copy of Brainstorm in our sideboard, because 3 Brainstorm in a action-oriented deck like this might be necessary in certain matchups, so I just figured a 3rd Brainstorm might make that more consistent. We also added 1 copy of Hiding Spot, which is another secret action which helps you give stealth to one of your characters after they choose a defender. or before they choose a defender, sorry. This helps you get around things like press the advantage because they're giving -2 defense to someone, and then you can force them to attack someone else who doesn't have the -2 defense. It's pretty good. It is a black pip, so it gives pierce to someone if there are a blue deck as well. So if you need to deal some damage, Hiding Spot is there for you. We also play another copy of Unconventional Flying Object. This is in case you do realize that you need to be discarding cards from your opponent's hand more frequently with Major Shockwave's ability, but it's kind of unlikely. I kind of have it in there just as an if situation, but it is kind of fun if you want to play 3 of those. So, and then the last sideboard is 2 copies of Underhanded Tactics. Do 1 damage to an enemy. If it's KO'd this way, you can repair 1 damage from one of your Decepticons. This is if you want to do more burn with things like Frag Toss. Because of Decepticon's Shockwave's ability, your opponent does get to choose where the damage goes every time they discard a card, so they might put it to where one character has 1 damage left. An Underhanded Tactics kind of helps you force them to spread out the damage just a little bit more so that you have to deal a damage and not kill someone. Otherwise, you do get to heal a damage, which is very nice on something like Shockwave because of how much health he has, and then they have to get through 1 more HP, which is definitely really annoying, but it is more burn to increase things like Frag Toss, Underhanded Tactics, and just Shockwave in general. It's definitely there just to put more pressure on your opponent because of how much just direct damage you can deal to them. But yeah, that's the electric chair. I really do like this list a lot. I've been having a lot of fun with it. Double Shockwave is just ridiculous with the amount of damage you can do and just disruption to your opponent's hand. It's so much fun. And throwing Optimus Prime in there just gives you even more usability through his Bold Tough and even Focus and Bot mode. It's just a great deck. I love playing it, and hopefully it continues just to get better in the future. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to whack that like button and have a phenomenal day. Peace.